Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul. In this video, we're breaking down 28 years later the Bone Temple. After a gap that felt like 28 years, we're now getting two parts of the franchise in the space of a year. I'm hyped! I really enjoyed the last film, and it felt like a love letter to the northeast of England. This went through lots of locations from my home, and I even think I woke up with the rage virus this morning. Hey, look at this, great! I will wear sunglasses for the rest of the video to not put you off, but that's how much of a fan I am. Either way, we're going to break down the teaser and go through all the details within it. If you enjoy it, please hit the thumbs up and make sure you subscribe for our breakdown on the film. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the Bone Temple.
When that time comes, men will no longer communicate.
Now, we last left Spike having said goodbye to not only his mother, but also his home. Having decided to step away from Holy Island, he was making his own way and being his own man. However, when wandering through the wilderness, he came across a strange and colourful group. These were the Jimmies, who are the main focus of this new film. Based on Jimmy Savile, if you know the true history of the real-life figure, then you'll know why he has a very sinister side. In case you don't know, Savile was once a national treasure. Savile rubbed shoulders with the royals and politicians and pretty much had a key to the country. However, he was hiding a dark secret that only came out upon his death. It was revealed that Savile had abused several children throughout his life, with victims ranging in the hundreds. Now, in this 28 years later world, that likely never came out. Things have been bad since the early noughties, and thus this never came out here. Same reason, like Sycamore gaps there in the first film, even though it was cut down in real life. Either way, having a group like this is an immediate red flag, and seeing Spike among them appears pretty dangerous. Now, the trailer itself opens with the titular Bone Temple. This was the monument we visited in the climax of the previous film, but something dark's now passed over it. Dr. Kelson built it as a monument to life and death. His mantra Memento Mori translated to Remember You Must Die. And this came with that notion. He wanted to show that life is precious because it doesn't last forever. And it seems like this place is going to be broken up here as well. When Spike accidentally knocked his skull off the tower, Kelson insisted that it wasn't important in that way and would one day be claimed by the elements regardless. Basically saying the Memento Mori is actualized. Spike adopted this philosophy at the end of the first film and placed Isla's skull atop the tower. This was him accepting her death and moving on with his life. Now, above the temple, we can see a large flock of birds. I know some people said last time that they were bats in our breakdown, but yeah, we see birds at the site later on in the teaser. So you were wrong, and Kevin Spoilers was right as usual, you fuck off. In our 28 years breakdown, we discussed how these often signal the approach of an alpha or the infected. We later see Kelson come face to face with Samson, so these scenes could be connected. If we take the birds as a general omen of danger, then it could also foreshadow the arrival of the Jimmies. Overall, I see it like a black cloud descending on the temple, and it brings a bad aura to the area. Furthermore, birds like crows are often associated with death, so flying above the Bone Temple is a nice bit of symbolic pairing. This is then followed by shots of the train, which looks like the one in the previous film. I love how in these films we often get flashes of like things before it all went to hell, and there's several moments that are linked to the past, and basically how things have changed. The prior movie had some shots of streets in the past, and these were then altered and changed to the dilapidated ones in the present. At the Angel of the North, Isla of course also talked about how it was like a time machine. The series is very much about how time destroys everything, and eventually all will rot away into nothing. Yay! Shoutouts to our editor Jaden for pointing out that in the background we can also hear a recording of Arthur C. Clarke Predicts the Future. Appearing at the World's Fair in New York, he talked about time and the futility in trying to predict the future. He said, basically the future is impossible to predict. We don't know how technology will change, and even minor things can create a butterfly effect that will alter the path that we're on. Even something like a disease, can evolve and completely change the landscape of humanity. And it would be impossible to predict this. Jaden also pointed out that the song is Conversations with Death.
Oh, I am death, none can excel.
Many of the things.
This is obviously about, well, conversations with death. I think the marriage of these two things is pointing out how the only thing we can truly predict is death. That will come for us, and everything, everywhere, will eventually be lost to time. Even humans will go extinct one day. So having this and then the time lapse that starts a trailer is an excellent tie together. Coupled with the train flashback, it just works really well. So having this cut is very inspired. It's dilapidated and overcome by nature. 28 Years obviously had a key scene taking place on a similar train. Now why I say it's a similar train and might not be that one is because that was blue and red with white stripes on it. However, this one looks green. That may be a train passing on the track beside it, but yeah, let me know what you think below. The interiors do look very similar though and have the same pattern on the seats. We then get Kelson walking through that blue one, and we know that train is close to the Bone Temple. So potentially the green one's on a different track. We then see one of the crows pecking at some stones at the site, which appear to be covered in blood. Ooh. In our breakdown of the last film, we talked about how birds follow the alphas so they can pick the remains of their victims. However, in doing this, they stalk the potential prey and appear almost like a warning that they're coming. We then see what might be Kelson's home. It was never really confirmed if he lives at the temple itself, but he seems to have a shelter somewhere nearby. We know that he has tunnels and bases, and now it seems like we're seeing where he camps out at. Here he has a wall of photos of his loved ones, and Roy Fiennes is looking fines and very young. We then cut to his books, which are stuff like food for free, herbal medicines, and basically guides to everything that he'd need to survive here. There's also Grey's Anatomy, not the TV book set, and this is a book that was published in 1858. It's a reference book of human anatomy and basically one of the staple texts of medicine. Now, I do wonder if this ties in how outdated that everything is. Everyone's kind of stuck in the past, which we saw on the island last time. They even had a picture of Queen Elizabeth II from the 50s. So this is just another thing that shows how far back the characters have gone. I do wonder if he also has lots of notes on the infected as well. We saw he had all sorts of little tricks to get around them, just like his morphine darts. He used these to subdue Samson and kill Isla, and he also covered himself in iodine, which apparently the virus doesn't like. So yeah, it's not too far to suggest that he has all sorts of notes with these findings, and maybe even experiments, yeah, and just has probably these in his house somewhere, which might help people survive. He even has a little crank record player, so he's got a cushy little thing going on. The walls are also round, and it feels like it could be some sort of World War II bunker. There's of course ties to war, and last time we saw flashes of soldiers as Jamie and Spike left the island. We then see him encountering the Alpha Samson once again. In the background, you can also see the temple, so we know where this is happening. We last saw Samson when he was pursuing Spike and Kelson and nearly ripped his head off. We speculated that the baby Isla might be his child, and he wanted her back, so perhaps this is a continuation of that. She's of course on Holy Island, as Spike took her back at the end of the movie. Kelson then approaches him here and basically does the, "Hey, sun's getting real low." Kelson respects life in all forms and wants to study the infected instead of killing them. I do wonder if when he puts the blowpipe down that he actually hasn't fired at him and instead is seeing if he'll be chill. Guy might have tamed an alpha and basically have someone who always hits the thumbs up. Samson would massively help in the fight against the Jimmies and could be how the character gets out of it. We then get a sweeping shot of a lake and some inserts of the forest and a deer. This sends Scarpers away as a hunter passes through the trees. They're wearing a blue coat and have long dark hair with a beard. Now at first, I did think this was potentially Jamie going out to find Spike. He tried to run after him at the end of the previous movie, but the tide had cut off the causeway. He's then met by the infected and flees, and if this is Jamie, you know, he's likely having to do these missions alone. Last time, they made it clear that the rule was you can't go after anyone who leaves. So I do wonder if Jamie's going to break protocol in this film and go out after his son. But obviously, no one would be willing to join him. However, Samson appears to grab a guy in a blue coat later on who looks a lot like this guy, and yeah, doesn't look like Aaron Taylor Johnson at all. So I'm wasting your time there, but we're just being thorough. Now what we next see is shots of the Jimmies. They're still wearing their bright blonde hair and tracksuits, however, they're now putting on masks. This draws an interesting parallel to the infected masks worn by the Holy Islanders. In our 28 Years breakdown, we speculated they were worn as a constant reminder of the infected threat on the mainland. It's almost like they worship the danger as well, and was sort of cultish in their ceremony surrounding it. People, of course, are fascinated by things that scare them, and it's sort of like a Halloween mask. Here, the Jimmies also seem to be wearing theirs as some sort of ritual. They have the prisoners tied up and gagged, which evoke the upside-down infected they'd carved up in the prior film. Found by Jamie and Spike, we're likely seeing the opposite side of this ritual. Having them like this instantly shows how brutal they are, and it reminded me of a similar mass execution scene that happened in The Walking Dead. We see them carving up their stomachs much in the same way that person had been in the last film. As they do this, a woman hides and watches, trying to keep quiet. This appears to be a woman who shows up repeatedly throughout the trailer. We catch her running through the forest at 124 and then running to a gate at 132. She also appears in the kitchen with the Jimmies at the minute 5 mark. Here we get some shots of them eating in a not so dilapidated house. They're surrounded by some very nervous non-Jimmies and Spike. It's possible this is taking place on Holy Island and the Jimmies went there after Spike opened up to them. The interior decor looks similar to what we saw from the Islanders in the first film, so it is possible that they've taken over that location. Though not identical, there's a very similar mirror above the fireplace at Jamie's that we also see present here. The green pastel walls are also something that repeatedly showed up in a lot of the houses. The vibe is similar to Negan's hostile takeover of Alexandria in The Walking Dead, and we even saw a grave saying Negan in the first film, but that is a colossal reach. Nonetheless, it evokes the Viking invasion of Holy Island in 793. If this isn't on the island, I do feel like the films are building towards that, and if they get a third one, I imagine it'll be an invasion of the island. If this isn't on the island though, they could have taken over some of the other communes that we heard were about in the first film. We could then follow a group of these survivors and we'll see them racing across the land. We then see the Jimmies scouting out Kelson. The one here is played by Aaron Kellerman, who you might recognize from Solo, Willow, and also Secret Invasion. On her head, you can see a carving of an upside-down crucifix. This was Jimmy's symbol in the first film, and it's clear he's branding his gang. This is not too dissimilar to Charles Manson and also the Manson family. That too was a murderous cult and had these upside-down carvings, which, yeah, looking at it now, looks a bit like a cross. You might also notice that throughout the trailer, the main Jimmy's sort of standing in a bit of a pose like Baphomet. Though the left hand isn't pointing down, this does seem intentional, and it's said the Antichrist will supposedly mark his followers' foreheads. We can also see a smokestack in the background, and in the first film, Kelson used a furnace to take off the skin. We then see the Jimmies moving through the Bone Temple at night. Jimmy's loving it, and I suspect his idea of celebrating death is a lot different to Kelson's. Jack O'Connor's teased he's an absolute psychopath, and yeah, kind of a lesson in how appearances can be deceiving. Everyone thought Kelson was scary because, yeah, he was like a bald dude covered in iodine with like rows and rows of bodies, so fair enough. On the flip side of this though, Jimmy seemed fun and basically like part of the biggest tonal shift I've ever seen in a movie. They came in like the Power Rangers and basically the ending to a Saturday morning cartoon. This spelled things out from the Teletubbies, but they clearly had a more sinister side. This was of course mirrored in the real life Savile, who seemed fun on the surface, but this was something that allowed him to get access to his victims. We then see the Blue Coat Hunter being attacked by Samson, and he's about to pull off his finishing move. Guy is screwed, but I do wonder if Samson will change throughout the movie and maybe his humanity will come out more. I think the last film showed that there's more to the infected than simply being mindless zombies. There was that woman on the train who basically her maternal instincts kicked in, and we have seen that they can evolve and change. The alpha show intelligence, and it kind of builds out from Don in the second film. Also, I realised before I call the last film the first film, but it's the first film in the trilogy. I'm sorry, stop commenting, please. Please, I'm begging you, I've got a bad eye. I can't read them. Next, we get a shot of the Jimmies burning down a barn. This could be the same place where they had the prisoners hanging up in the earlier shot. A person runs out on fire, and yeah, clearly a nightmare. We then get an infected person screaming into the sky. If you look at what he's wearing, this is a red top and blue jacket. This appears to be who chases the couple at 123 and then who's later killed by the errand Jimmy at 130. I'd imagine this Jimmy in particular is going to be highlighted throughout the movie and be more of a character than just Red Jimmy. I did wonder if that was her at the 105 mark, but I think they look more like the woman being chased later on. We then get Spike in his blonde wig. Don't know where the Jimmies get them from, but it's clear they're trying to indoctrinate Spike into their way of life. Dressing a child like Jimmy Savile as well is pretty wild. We then get a shot of Kelson in the monument and Jimmy approaching from behind. He's kind of circling like a wild animal on the hunt. Aaron Kellyman's Jimmy then is seen walking through a field and slicing up that red top infected. Next we get Spike defending a burning structure with his bow. The fire in the background is potentially the burning building we saw earlier. We know the Jimmies are over there, so perhaps he's defending them and maybe even taking part in their atrocities. At this point, he might even see the woman who's been running throughout the trailer and might be like, "You get yourself away, love. Go while you still can." Meanwhile, the Jimmies are loving the fire. We then return to the train and a pile of dead bodies stirs. I did wonder if this was in the aftermath of the train crash or maybe it's present day. But their clothes are in fact intact. We can't really show this train because of all the gore, but yeah, someone clearly survived it. Or maybe they've got rage. Either way, these bodies look newly dead and a lot of them appear like passengers. We then get the main Jimmy and Spike. Spike is wearing the same clothes as at the end of the first film, so perhaps this is towards the beginning. Has been said that the film picks up immediately after the last one, so I can see this as being pretty early on. He of course gets some new clothes in the movie, but if he needed that, he should have checked out our merch store right below. There we have our 28 years later inspired t-shirt. That's all the rage now. We also have our Alien Earth ones and lots more, like the ones behind me. If you buy 3, you get 20% off as well, which is perfect for the apocalypse. Yay! We then see someone gets hoid out the train. This is a majority slipping in there, but this is by Samson, the big don your wife tells you not to worry about. We then see Jimmy trying to kill Spike with a knife. Accompanying this is the bone temple on fire. Kelson does a sort of roar, almost like in a ritualistic manner. Perhaps he's burning it down, or maybe even the Jimmies have. We do see a guy in a dress kind of spinning around on fire, and I do wonder if that's Kelson being killed. He does seem to be wearing something similar here, but yeah, let me know below because I don't want the guy to go. Now, the whole idea of a temple ties in with the themes of the last film, as in that Jimmy was a perversion of religion and innocence and basically an antichrist figure. That's why he carried the crucifix upside down. In this trailer, we see him visiting a lot of the locations and characters from the first movie and attempting to corrupt them. If that last movie was about the loss of innocence, this one might be about the corruption of it, hence the whole thing with Jimmy Savile. I do feel like he'll invade the island at some point and likely destroy the Bone Temple as well. The fire creates what looks like an eye, and this riffs off the ending of the first film. There we got a view that showed what appeared to be an eye as well, but there it was more about hope and acceptance, whereas here it's about destruction. Now, we also know, due to Danny Boyle, that Cillian Murphy will be appearing at the end of the movie. He told everyone when promoting the last one, and you should call him Danny Spoil, mate, eh? Either way, I wonder if the Jimmies are actually worshipping him, since his character was called Jim. It'll be interesting to see if he's been corrupted or if they're doing things against his wishes. Either way, we know that he'll be there for this, and let me know your thoughts on the trailer below. Also, massive shout outs to John Varty, aka Jay Vizzy, who did a ton of work on this video. The team's really been carrying me this week because I've not been very well, so shout outs to him, Jaden and Matt. You guys are massively appreciated. Also, just to let you know, this weekend I'm running a half marathon for my local dog and cat shelter, so yeah, hopefully I'm all better for that, but I'm gonna do it either way. For health be damned. That is the Great North Run though, and if you want to donate to the charity so they can get stuff like beds, toys, and everyday essentials for the dogs and cats, then please donate at the link below. Much appreciated. Also, please drop a like on the video and drop a comment with all your thoughts below. If you want to follow us on Instagram, then make sure you check us out at Heavy Spoilers as well, where we'll keep you up to date with what we're doing. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos? Just click the join button. If you sign up, you'll get access to stuff like Children of Men, our Aliens vs Predator breakdown, Barbarian, everything that we're kind of holding back for a couple of weeks. That is coming to the channel publicly. I know people get annoyed by that, but it is coming. But yeah, if you want to see that early, link in this join button thing. Either way, if you want something else to watch, we've got a breakdown of the last film on screen right now. I travelled to lots of sites from the movie, dropped in lots of local trivia, and yeah, if you want a tour of the Northeast while talking about 28 years later, then definitely head over there right after this. Without the way, thank you for clicking this. I'm your host Paul, you're the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.